Okay, hi there traders and welcome to Trade the Structure. Coming to the Asian market session. So we're just going to go over what happened overnight in the US markets and European markets and see where levels are going to play out or potentially playing out for some trade entries for what our major markets we're looking at anyway. So we're just going to recap the action. We'll start off with the Aussie markets, Ethereum there. We'll just start off with the Aussie markets here. This is the 5-minute on the SPY, okay, SPY 200, the index. And you can see this is where the market closed at 4 p.m. Yesterday, Sydney time. And you can see we've sort of been bouncing off this level here. I thought it would open a little bit more negative, but this was a flush into the previous close, the previous US session, so previous night. We actually opened up above that level. So that was more of just a big flush of this previous low here. And you can see these lows, it was just, it was just teetering on that zone into the close there of the US close, flushed it, and then we bounced straight back and held above that yesterday. So started the European session, we sort of had a bit of a pop down and then rallied. So we've been holding just below this level. You can see it's touched it quite a few times at 72.88, but we're currently holding an anchor to this leg up, or to this move up at least at 72.50 for now. So what I'd be looking for is maybe a flush of that level. If the bulls want to come out and play, you'd expect that to flush and push up through 73.13. But if this level starts to hold and you get this flush and then retrace back below, expect it to break back down below 72.50. I think longer term we're negative, but we're maybe just trying to find a base in there. Okay, look at the broader picture, and it's a bit clearer on the broader picture here. This is the ASX 200, but on the 30-minute chart, you see markets powered down. It's held some lower highs, extended down hard, retraced, shallow retracement, another big extension, and a bigger retracement this secondary time. And now it's come back in, retested that level. So that's just a failure there, a retest failure after the flush, and then we're starting to hold up off that level, 71.91, and same sort of action there. It's at 72.89 level. Let's look into either break or hold that for a lower high and pressure back down through, potentially through 71.91. Now the US was actually held up okay. They did bounce a bit on the open, but they gave up those gains into the close. So I think that could weigh on our market today. Look in the Asian market session, look at the Hang Seng. Now Hang Seng's, like we said, been in a serious downtrend. It's been trending down for quite a while now. And we're just coming into some levels now where it's pressed down, had a bit of a bounce, took out that level at 1977.15, took out that level, extended through, had a bit of a bounce yesterday, and we're back up into this zone here at 21.14. So wouldn't be surprised if we sort of flush that area, maybe flush through this high before we roll over again, but it is still negative. And you look at the daily charts, they're in a well and truly well-established downtrend. Okay, so it's whether that continues or we get a bit more of a retracement on the daily basis. So you get this grind up today, which would mean that we could be looking up to 26.95. But I think that's a big step to press up through there. I would expect maybe more into this 22.260 area, this previous high, or maybe just gap fill just to this zone here. Okay, looking at the Nikkei. So the Nikkei, that action off those lows there is a bit of a grind up. So it's not conducive to a strong bull market or a strong, buying. Okay, so you've got lower highs in play. The market's pressed down, shallow retracement, lower high, down to here, and then a bigger retracement back up to 26.910, and it's extended on that move down. So we had 3 good legs down before really retracement. We have retraced at the moment. We are retracing, but we haven't retested any of those lows. So we would expect if it's going to hold, you're going to get that secondary, that lower high come to play, potentially around that 26.590, power down, and fall short somewhere, in one of these minor levels in here. Just to flush out some of these sellers, bring in some more, flush out some of these buyers, bring in some sellers, because I think the same thing's going to happen. We're going to power through those lows and potentially look down to what it marked up there, 25.705. That's what it could be set down. But if it's going to hold, it's going to hold a higher level, or maybe retest and fail it at that zone there, okay, before it bounce. So it could continue to grind up. At the moment, I'm sort of biased that this level is going to hold 26.590, and then way on the market, you're going to get sellers to pile in. Let's look at the US now. We'll look at the Dow. So the Dow, it's this zone through here, 33.690. You can see it's popped up through, fell below that level, bounced, had another spike into the zone, bounced before we spiked through again, bounced. So it's getting defended. You can see that now it's getting defended. We've got an area just in here, which it looks like it wants to hold to, potentially as a lower high, and that is around 33.664. Okay, so if that's going to hold, we're going to get these levels. It's going to power through. We're going to hold that lower high, and we're going to head down to potentially that 32.684 zone, and then even lower, the 32.310. Okay, that's what you'll be looking for. If it's going to hold, it looks like I said, it's got through the low, didn't get through this low by a lot. Okay, before we had a bit of a bounce, and it's retested to that low a couple of times now. And that was, I think, on the open. It was just after the open overnight. That little move down, that was really just a flush and trap of sellers before we bounced back. But you can see it faded into the close. So whether that level is going to hold and we're going to sort of drift around, I would expect us to not do much during the Asian market session and the European markets. But I'd expect more coming to the US Open. We're going to get some sort of direction. Okay, whether it's just going to get contained between these lows in here and this high, I don't know yet. Okay, but from my money, I would expect that sort of be start to weigh if we get a lower high come into play. So if we do get something like a bit of a pop up and start to hold at a lower level, I'm looking for that break below. Okay, tonight. So the way it had a big sell off and it hasn't really bounced back at all. I think tech is still weighing on the broader market. You still got I think Facebook to come out earnings. So realistically, it is weighing on the market, and that's probably going to continue, I would expect anyway. So this is the NASDAQ, and you can see that's the level we're interested in at 13,025, and it's traded there before. You can see previously, whoop, let me go too fast, previously a few times traded here before, just a slight higher low, the retesting into the level. So that's a key level for me. Okay, what I'll be looking at, it's just whether or not, it is the way it's retraced here. You can see the momentum's it's shifted up, but it hasn't gone up as hard as what you would expect. Okay, if it was going to be a bullish action, you would expect it to really power up. All right, so what I'm really looking for is this level to get retested. If we start to break higher, yeah, we could be looking back up to this zone, or maybe this is the zone that's going to start to hold through here. Keep powering up into this sort of area where it's traded, that high, sort of the lows previously before we got that bounce. We powered through that level. It might be just ticking up and ticking up into that zone before we start to fail again. We might get some of this action and then back down again. So that's what I'd be looking for on the NASDAQ. But you can see this area is a big area. It's just uncertain at the moment. Okay, 13,025 is going to hold, and then we're going to go up. Or is this zone going to hold through here, and then we're going to start to break? Because what it's doing here is also building up quite a few buys. Okay, buys off that level, which could get stopped out. But for me, momentum is just in that zone where it could go either way. All right, we'll get over to European markets. Now, this is the DAX. We'll start off with 30-minute chart again. You can see it's had these big moves down. So a big move down, consolidated around there, a bit of a minor bounce before we flush down through that level at 13,870 into 13,600. It's retested into that level before we had that bit of a bounce. So we're just coming up to retest this breakout area at 13,870. So for me, it's whether or not this is going to hold. Same as a lot of these other markets, we're sort of in that level where we've got buying back into the zones, but it's not buying with conviction in any sense. Okay, so it's more just a bit of a grind high, more of these shorts getting squeezed out of the action. Okay, any shorts getting squeezed out rather than some serious buying to start to drive the market higher. Okay, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just what it looks like at the moment. These little minor higher levels, looks like spike in there just to flush out, dragging some sellers and then bounce back again, dragging some sellers, bounce back again. Okay, and we're sort of hovering around that 13,870 at the moment. So it's whether or not we can sort of flush into that level. We might just get a couple of flushes here and then start to hold and drop, or we'd want to see from there. We want to see a decent, something like that. If it's going to be another uptrend, if that starts to hold, any sellers in here that haven't got out, you might get sellers from earlier, even off this level here, through this level, are going to get squeezed out of the action, and they will see that once they start to break up through that level and it starts to hold. Okay, so they're reclaiming back above the level. Okay, for this action here, you could get a bit of a pop and then drop back below. For me, that's just a stop hunt. Okay, then you're looking for that lower high. Going to the UK 100 FTSE. All right, we've got same sort of scenario. So we had the press down, it's retraced quite a bit, flushed out through those lows. So the difference is it's flushed the lows at 7,339 before we bounced, and you can see these moves down. It's the algorithm's trying to drive the market back up again, whereas this move down didn't have any of these spikes. Okay, spike like that and reclaim it. Okay, spike down and reclaim. We've got this spike down here that we reclaim back again. Okay, this is different action. It's more, it's just a pullback at the moment, but you didn't see that in the move down. It's quite, conviction. Everyone's sort of biased in one direction at the moment. It looks like we're getting shorts in the market trying to squeeze them out, and we've just pressured back up to 74.94. So whether or not we just flush through this high and we're back below it, you can see with that, the last half an hour candle, popped up below, just I think closed roughly right at that level. The next level just down, whether we're going to, that's just the flush into 74.94, and we start to fail from there, or whether we're going to do what we're talking about. The same sort of scenario here. You either pop up above and retrace below and then hold a lower high, or you reclaim and you sort of hold that level. Okay, we sort of do some work above that level. That's what I'll be looking for coming to the start of the European session, or the European session itself, see what it does on the open. Okay, let's get over to some currencies now. We've got, obviously, we'll start off with the US dollar. Now, that's on the daily chart, and this is that daily level we're talking about. Okay, so I might just go over the daily charts on a few. You see, it's sort of key. It's really powered up. The US dollar's really started to extend up. Okay, it's extended up into that level 103.33, and it hasn't retraced yet. So whether, the way it looks there, the way it's gone near vertical, and we got near vertical last time, we got some sort of retracement, and we come all the way back down to the sort of 89 area, below 90 anyway. So that's a good move down, and that could be a big flush of a lot of shorts built up in other currencies such as the euro, the pounds, the Aussie. So is that what we're looking for? The problem is inflation is still out of hand in the US. They're not doing anything just yet. Everyone's expecting rate rises, but they're holding off as long as they can. Now that just means strength into the US dollar, in my opinion. And until they do that to start raising rates, we might start to find a high. I suspect that this is an area where it's prime, okay, to be a high, which would mean you can start to look for longs, maybe in the euro, the pound, the Aussie, and other denominated US dollar denominated currencies. But for now, it's not easy just yet. So if we go down to the 30-minute charts, markets, like I said, just been holding higher levels. It's still holding higher lows. The latest one is really at this zone through here, which is 102.47. So as long as that's holding, the trend is still up. We could retrace a bit further. So you might have a bit of a spike here. You got this move, pull back out of the zone, a little lower high. We could come back down, down here. That's not a reason to sell because we could still hold the trend up. As long as we hold this anchor, we could start to turn and have another leg up. Okay, but if that anchor starts to break, then we've got a different story. Okay, so for now, trend is still up in the US dollar, which would mean other currencies, say the euro and stuff, is under pressure. And you can see that if we go back to obviously that daily chart, that's really powered down into a key area at 104.86, or that 104.80 area. This is a longer term support. Well, it is support at the moment. It's held up here, held up, flushed it. We've got a deeper retracement. So as soon as you get that flush and start to hold, you're expecting the most recent lower high to come under pressure. Okay, so that's pretty much what happened there. It took out this recent lower high, pressed up. We come back down, failed to get down there this time, but held at the higher level. So we go back to a test the most recent high, which is basically up at that zone 124.85. So now we've pressed back in there. So it's whether or not we're going to hold this level again, or are we going to bounce? Now it works in with the US dollar. If the US dollar is reaching highs, and it might just flounder around or play around with those highs, which would mean that the euro is going to sort of chop around these lows. Okay, so just be aware if you're going to go long. For now, your stop's going to be massive. You don't know where your stop's going to play. When the market's trending into a level, there's no need to buy it just yet until you've got a higher low to work off. And depending on what trading time frame you're working off, if you're working off the 30, the trend is still down. Okay, so I would be not looking for longs until we get some sort of level to work off. And I suspect that at the moment is the lower high 106.20, and we're trading at 105.54. So 70 pips stop, or for a level to break. That's the anchor to the downtrend. So as long as that's in place, then the market is pressing down. So whether this is a bit of a blow off is a different story, and that's the same like the US. Whether that pop up is a bit of a blow off before we start to see some sellers pile in, or reversion, some easing out of those dollar longs, which would mean easing out of euro shorts, or not. Looking at the pound has on a daily basis has gone through a key level, a key low anyway. If we just go over to the daily, you can see it was sort of in this area we're looking. Okay, that bid zone. It's just powered through that. Okay, powered through that probably a day or so ago. So we're really looking to see where it's going to go to. There's levels. There is levels. There's a level right down here, but it's still a long way off. We've got a sort of little minor inside level, which it's got to today. Is it going to hold that? We don't know. All we can really look at is the shorter term time frames just to get some sort of idea of what could happen. So at the moment, that's that level we're talking about. It's 125.10. thereabouts. Market's still down. We still got, it's been anchored around this level here, which is at 125.94. So as long as that pressure's down, you want to stay short. You want to be biased short. And it could easily, I mean, looking at the MACD, it's returned back to the zero line. So for me, sort of momentum's down, and momentum shift back up again, but the pressure's still down. If that starts to roll, then we're looking for a break of that level and continuation of the downtrend. Okay, so for me, that's where I'd be biased at this stage. Look at the Aussie US. We'll just go over that now. You can see same sort of thing, pressure down. Now, inflation numbers came out yesterday a lot stronger than they expected, the CPI numbers. Now that would be, you would expect. The fact is that US dollar's been powering higher and pressuring that Aussie lower as well. But you would expect that Aussie to find some buying because of that higher interest rate, which would, you'd extrapolate that out to higher interest rates, okay, with that inflation number, which, the RBA got to pull their finger out sooner or later and raise rates. I think everyone's just trying to hold off. We've got obviously a housing market. Boom, no one wants to prick that bubble. And we've got elections coming up. So I think they'd be very shy to start raising rates prior to that. Maybe hold off as long as possible. But, with the US probably trying to copy them, their inflation is around 7%. We're at 5 or so. Maybe we're looking to leave that to get a bit higher. I don't know, but the cost of living is going up. Everything's going up, with that inflation. And the RBA is happy to sit back for now. But you would expect the next meeting is going to be a rate rise. So with the Aussie, you would expect that to start to find some support. You can see good move down. We bounced here. We pressured through 71.66, took out this low, but only on a really small push lower. So that's not, to me, conducive to the strength. So I'd be more looking for this kind of action. It is on a trend down, but it's coming to that point where I would expect a squeeze on any of those shorts sooner or later. Okay, and you can see momentum on this push down is at its strongest, lowest, higher momentum or higher MACD reading, low, new low, higher MACD. So you can see that momentum down is running out of steam. Okay, so that plays into the fact that we might get some Aussie dollar buying to offset that US dollar buying. And if the US dollar does turn, expect a massive pop in that. Now we'll get over to gold. And gold, we were looking at this yesterday, maybe a bounce off that level or a flush through. I did say that I didn't expect a big retracement. The way that was trading, it was sort of looking like it's going to roll over, and it did. It's powered through that level. Now we spoke about, let's get rid of that. We spoke about a bigger move down. So on the daily basis, that's your initial leg down. We've had this big push back up to around that 2000 mark, say, and that's your secondary leg down. So the fact that we just started to edge through this zone at around, say, 1900 even, this support, it's failing, we could extend on those losses down to 1823. Okay, and that's just from that daily chart, that pattern. That's what we call a volatility projection. That's your first move down, bit of chop around, bit of a pop up, tried to make back up to the new highs. Everyone was bullish. Inflation, it's had every reason to go up, but it's not. Instead, it's rolling over now. So it's given up that sort of move up. Well, we've got a lower high in play now, a major lower high because we're on the that's the daily basis, and we're looking to potentially cruise through and down to that level there, 1825 or thereabouts. Okay, so to me, that's still holding lower highs. We've got a lower high here, lower high, big extension down into a level. Still started to go up, tried to go up, couldn't, holding a lower high, and we extended through that level. So for me, momentum's still down. Okay, go over to, we'll look at crude and then copper. So we're on to oil, crude oil. You can see this level through here. Look, extended through that level. We've bounced back and we've retested that 99.90 area, and it's holding at the moment. Okay, it doesn't mean it's going to hold. It just did hold overnight. Okay, so it's retested. It's found that zone. You can find that. You can see that from previously. That was back in what's the 21st of April. It held that level. Now, if it's going to hold, you're going to hold a lower high in here. I'm going to press up through these highs at 102.97 or 103. Okay, but the longer term trend on the daily basis is still down. Okay, we can probably see that. Oh, maybe not. So that's highs up here. You got lower high in play. We've got a major support through at 93.93. You got a lower high in play at 108.30. It's down. We sort of bounced, so we're going to hold the lower high or not. I sort of expect that lower high to hold and start to pressure down to 99.90 and basically back through 100. And we could get a retest in 93.93. That's as long as we start to get that high low, like I said, expect to move up. And that's where things could get interesting again. Look at copper. Now, copper, you've got, it's just flushing around this level here, 4.4540. Okay, it's not powering up. It's trying to hold it. We flushed through, bounced, got a lower high. We've got to make a new little minor low. We bounced back. We've got a lower high again in comparison to this one here, lower high. But it's also holding these minor higher lows. Okay, higher levels, say. So around that zone. So it's just really chopping above and below that 45.40 area. So is it going to continue? We're going to break to the downside and continue down to 429.45, which makes sense to me. And that's only because that's your leg down. You've got massive congestion up here, consolidation through there, big lower high on a daily basis. Whoop, just 1 second. Lower high on the daily basis. This is your lower high on a daily, and we've got that secondary leg down, which would mean to me we're going to press down to this 29.45 area. Just keep an eye on that one. It could bounce back. We could drag in some buys and then dump again, but we'll see. But that's what I'm looking for, that move into that 429.45 area, as long as we sort of get through this zone. And the way it's, from what I'm seeing here, this move down this low, bounce back, we took out the low, it looks like it wants to do that. Okay. So just the last, we finished off in some cryptos. Just get over the Bitcoin. Didn't do too much. We had that big flush down to 37,644 area. We got a bit of a bounce back as the equity markets in the US tried to bounce, but we're just chopping and holding above 38,550 for now. So if we can hold that level, we might get an extension back up to 4,600. If it can't, it's going to chops around here and goes back down below there. Expect it to break down through 37,644. Now, I don't expect that to happen until we get the US market tonight. See what happens there. It seems to be watching and holding, trading around the US indices. Look at Ethereum, just to finish up with. We got that move down, 27.76. It's held up off that level. We're trying to hold a higher level. This looks like it's a cup and handle here, bit of a cup, which would mean we're going to press up through this level at 29.15 and start to attack into some of these highs. If not, if that does hold, we're basically looking at this level through here. We have got a little flush. We got a little flush there before we got this power down. We could easily just be doing the same thing here, bit of a flush before we get knocked on the head again. In that respect, I'd expect it down at 27.76. All right, that's all I wanted to talk about, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, like I said, always, if you do like what you hear, it'd be great if you can leave us a like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll speak to you again tomorrow. Cheers, guys. Bye.